In the car on the way to a vacation destination, the leader of the world's biggest boy band carefully cradles a small potted plant named Baby Plum. Before unpacking his own luggage, before checking his phone, RM's first priority is examining the tiny tree's condition and watering it with surgical precision. This isn't what you'd expect from a global megastar whose group generates billions in revenue. Stadium tours, luxury lifestyles, endless parties – that's the typical script for pop royalty. But RM, born Kim Namjoon, has built his empire on something completely different – the ancient art of bonsai cultivation. He names each of his bonsai trees individually. He talks to them. During BTS's most intense global stadium tours, these tiny plants travel with him. Fans created a word for this behavior, Namjooning. In 2019, when asked about his current activities, RM simply replied, "I'm Namjooning." By December 2020, he gave it an official definition: the act of living as Kim Namjoon, including walking in parks, appreciating nature, playing with crabs, and having good times with friends. Here's what makes this fascinating. RM has an IQ of 148. He scored in the top 1% on Korea's university entrance exams. He was planning to study chemical engineering. This brilliant mind is housed in a body his teammates call the God of Destruction. He breaks everything he touches. He loses possessions constantly. His physical clumsiness is legendary. So why would someone who destroys everything around him choose the world's most delicate hobby? Because bonsai isn't just gardening. It's Zen Buddhism and wabi-sabi philosophy compressed into a tiny pot. Bonsai demands extreme patience, microscopic physical control, and perfect harmony with natural growth cycles. One wrong cut kills the plant instantly. For RM, this wasn't a hobby, it was training. He was converting his destructive, chaotic energy into the most precise creative instrument possible. On his 27th birthday in 2020, RM revealed the philosophy: "In my 20s, I have too many thoughts, like the many branches of a tree. My brain has sadness, despair, destruction, but also happiness and hope. But as I get older, these branches get cut off. We have to feel pain and experience many things. If I had many branches in my 20s, after going through those experiences, I will finally become a beautiful tree in my 30s and 40s." The first major pruning came in 2013. RM faced the most brutal identity crisis of his career. He had started as Runch Ronda in Korea's underground hip-hop scene around 2001-2002, earning respect as a promising young rapper. Producer Bang Si-hyuk discovered RM's genius-level rap skills and built BTS around him. Originally planned as a pure hip-hop group, market forces pushed them toward the idol route. The hip-hop community saw this as betrayal. The tension exploded on November 21st, 2013. At a podcast called Kimchi Club, rapper Be Free publicly humiliated RM and Suga in front of hip-hop legends like Palo Alto. "Idols aren't hip-hop," Be Free declared. "How is putting on smoky makeup and dancing to attract teenage girls real rap? You've betrayed hip-hop." The attack was so vicious that Bang Si-hyuk personally visited Palo Alto's company to file a formal complaint. For most 19-year-olds, this would trigger uncontrollable rage or shame-driven retreat, but RM had been training with bonsai. When a bonsai faces disease or environmental shock, it doesn't waste energy fighting. It sends roots deeper and cuts unnecessary branches. RM took the humiliation and converted it into philosophical fuel. Instead of explosive anger, he turned inward. Who am I? How do I define my existence? He discovered Murray Stein Jung's map of the soul and dove into Carl Jung's analytical psychology. RM mapped his identity crisis onto Jung's framework. The idol persona was his social mask. The rejected rapper was his shadow. The integrated self was his ego. Instead of rejecting the idol identity, he embraced psychological complexity. Both versions of himself were real. Both were necessary. This integration became the architecture for BTS's 2020 album, Map of the Soul 7, which conquered global charts. The album's opening track, RM's intro persona, asked the eternal question, "Who am I?" over a hip-hop beat, dissecting the gap between authentic self and social roles. The music video visualized Jung's theory perfectly. RM surrounded by mirrors reflecting multiple selves, hundreds of mannequins representing social personas. Murray Stein himself, at age 75, was moved by BTS's psychological depth. I was deeply impressed that young people are so seriously trying to explore their authentic selves and learn to love themselves. RM's wordplay became surgical precision. In 2018's Dang, he took the word meaning wrong and twisted it into 7 different meanings: winning cards, bell sounds, swollen faces from being hit. In Trivia Love, he used Korean alphabet structure to show how the sharp edges of person become the round curves of love when worn down by experience. Like bonsai creating beautiful curves within the constraints of a small pot, RM crafted his most artistic self within the supposed limitations of idol culture. Each crisis became fertilizer. Each constraint became creative framework. The philosophy was working. Most people know RM's success through Billboard numbers and Grammy nominations, but those metrics miss the real story. His solo album Indigo, released December 2022, was designed as a personal archive of his late 20s. After BTS's mega hits Dynamite and Butter, RM paradoxically experienced creative burnout. Success was suffocating his artistic identity. Indigo earned a Metacritic score of 87, universal critical acclaim. It achieved double platinum certification in Korea with over 800,000 copies sold. On December 31st, 2022, it debuted at number 3 on Billboard 200 with 83,000 equivalent album units. Breaking that down, 77,500 pure album sales, 1,500 digital albums, and 4,000 streaming equivalent units, representing about 5.3 million streams. This was the highest Billboard 200 debut for a Korean solo artist in history, surpassing twice as Nayeon at number 7. His second solo album, Right Place, Wrong Person, released in May 2024 while he was in military service, debuted at number 5 with 54,000 units. RM became the first Korean solo artist to place 2 albums in the Billboard 200 Top 5, but numbers don't capture his real innovation. Indigo's opening track, Yun, was a tribute to Korean master painter Yun Hyung-kun. The album cover featured Yun's 1972 painting, Blue. RM sampled the painter's philosophy. I want to be a human before I do some art, rapping it over Erykah Badu's vocals and 90s boom bap beats. Billboard ranked this album cover 86th in their 100 greatest album covers of all time, praising how it dissolved the boundary between music and visual art. But RM's true mastery shows in how he reinvests his capital into cultural infrastructure. In September 2020, he donated $84,000 to Korea's National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art. The money reprinted 4,000 copies of out-of-print art books by masters like Kim Won-ki, Lee Jung-sab, and Yoon Young-kun, distributing them to 400 public libraries nationwide. In 2021, he donated $71,700 to restore a 15th century Korean royal wedding dress called hwarot, housed at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Only 40 of these garments exist worldwide. The 5-month restoration brought this cultural artifact back to public view after decades in storage. In 2022, he donated another $71,700 to fund English-language art catalogs showcasing Korean paintings in international museums. This isn't celebrity charity. This is systematic cultural archaeology, identifying exactly where the global art ecosystem has gaps and filling them with precision funding. RM experienced healing through Namjooning in museums during his burnout. Now he's ensuring that experience remains available to future generations worldwide. The bonsai philosophy reached its ultimate expression at the United Nations General Assembly in September 2021. When COVID-19 locked down the world, mainstream media labeled young people the COVID-lost generation, victims of canceled graduations, destroyed job markets, and social isolation. BTS felt this pain directly. Their massive world tour was canceled. They were trapped in rooms, staring out windows just like everyone else. But speaking as special presidential envoys for future generations and culture, RM and BTS rejected this narrative entirely. Using data from the Global Youth Stories campaign, they argued that young people weren't lost. They were innovating, finding new ways to connect online, leading climate activism, carving fresh paths through uncertainty. They renamed this generation the Welcome Generation, young people who don't fear change but greet it by saying welcome and walking forward. Even when unexpected situations arise, if we believe in possibilities and hope, we will never be lost and will discover completely new paths, RM declared to the UN. This was the evolution of his 2018 UN message, Speak Yourself, from individual self-acceptance to collective resilience. In his 2024 documentary about his album Right Place, Wrong Person, RM revealed his final philosophical framework, Albert Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was condemned to push a boulder up a mountain for eternity. Every time he reached the top, the rock rolled back down. Camus saw this as the perfect metaphor for modern existence. For RM, 10 years of global idol pressure, album sales, chart positions, fan expectations, public scrutiny was his boulder. The endless cycle of performance and judgment. But Camus's insight was that freedom comes from accepting the absurdity rather than fighting it. When you embrace the struggle itself, you become master of your fate. As RM told Vogue in 2023, at some point, I realized that the ironic shortcut to eternity is to be completely immersed in the present. The god of destruction learned to control water droplets and soil texture. The fractured identity integrated psychological complexity into artistic power. The pressures that should have broken him became the constraints that shaped his most beautiful curves. RM's story isn't about K-pop success. It's about the most fundamental human challenge: how to thrive when the world tries to cut you down. He found the answer in a tiny pot with careful hands, infinite patience, and the wisdom to know that constraints don't imprison growth, they perfect it. The Bonsai master built more than an empire. He built a philosophy of resilience that changes how we see pressure, identity, and the art of becoming human.